There's something about money that nobody tells you, not because it's complicated, but because it's uncomfortable. You think you want more money, you say it, you plan for it, you even try to build your life around it. But if you were honest, truly honest, there's a part of you that doesn't want it. Not fully, not at the level you imagine. Because money, at a certain level, doesn't just change your life, it changes you, and your brain doesn't trust that version of you. That's where everything starts to break, because what you're experiencing right now is not a lack of opportunity, it's a conflict. A quiet one, a hidden one, a constant one, between who you are and who you would need to become. And that conflict is exhausting, because you feel it. Even when you don't notice it, it shows up as hesitation, as delay, as overthinking, as starting, and then stopping. And from the outside, it looks like inconsistency, but from the inside, it's protection. Your brain is protecting something, not your money, not your success, your identity. Because identity is the most stable thing your brain has. It's what tells you, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is what I deserve. And anything outside of that feels wrong, not logically, emotionally. So when you say, I want more money, your brain doesn't hear that as opportunity. It hears, something is about to change. And change means uncertainty. Uncertainty means risk. And risk is something your brain is designed to avoid, not reduce, avoid. That's why you don't fail loudly. You fail quietly. You delay, you distract yourself. You wait for the right moment. And that moment never comes, because it's not about timing. It's about tolerance. Your tolerance for a different version of yourself. And right now, that tolerance is limited, not because you're weak, because you're conditioned. Conditioned through repetition, through experience, through observation. You didn't learn money through logic. You learned it through emotion, through what you saw, through what you felt, through what you absorbed, before you even understood it. Maybe money was always stressful, maybe it created tension, maybe it changed people, and your brain made a simple connection. Money, task, pressure. So now, even when you chase it, part of you resists it. Because to your system, it's not neutral. It's heavy, and anything heavy triggers caution. That's why you hesitate, not because you don't know what to do, but because doing it feels like stepping into something unfamiliar. And unfamiliar is dangerous to your brain, not because it is dangerous, but because it's unknown. So your brain does something very subtle. It slows you down, just enough to keep you where you are. And you don't notice it, because it feels like you. It feels like, I'm thinking it through. I'm being careful. I'm waiting for the right time. But you're not. You're regulating. Bringing yourself back to what feels manageable, to what feels predictable, to what feels like home, even if that home is limitation. That's the part nobody wants to accept. You're not stuck because you can't grow. You're stuck because growth feels like leaving yourself behind, and your brain doesn't want that, because losing your identity feels like losing control. And control is everything. Even if that control keeps you small. That's the trap. And it's invisible, because it doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like you, your thoughts, your decisions, your way of being. But it's not you. It's a pattern built over time, reinforced through repetition, strengthened through emotion, and now running automatically. That's why you can't just decide to change, because decisions don't override patterns. Patterns override decisions. That's why you can know exactly what to do and still not do it, because knowing is conscious, but patterns are not. They operate below awareness, below logic, below intention, and until you bring them up into awareness, they control everything. Your actions, your reactions, your results, including your money. That's why some people keep repeating the same financial cycles, not because they don't try, but because they don't see. They don't see the pattern, they only see the outcome. So they fix the surface. They change strategies. They try new methods. They push harder. But the system underneath stays the same. And as long as the system stays the same, the results will too. Different numbers, same pattern. Different situation, same behavior, different opportunity, same outcome. That's what makes it frustrating, because it feels like you're trying, but nothing changes. And eventually, you start to believe something is wrong with you. But it's not. Nothing is wrong with you. You're just running a pattern. And that pattern was never questioned, because it felt normal. And normal is what your brain defends the most. Even more than success, even more than growth. Because normal is predictable, and predictable means safe, and safe means survival. That's all your brain cares about. Not success, not wealth, not potential, survival. And if your current level feels like survival, your brain will protect it, no matter what you say you want. That's why people stay stuck. Not because they lack ability, because they lack awareness. Awareness of what's actually driving them, because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And once you can't unsee it, you have a choice. Not the illusion of choice, a real one, to follow it or to interrupt it. And that moment is where everything begins to change. And here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. You don't just follow your patterns, you defend them, you protect them, you justify them, you explain them. You build a story around them so they make sense. I'm just not lucky. I didn't have the right opportunities. I'll start when things are better. But those aren't explanations. They're shields. Shields your brain uses to protect your identity, because if you saw the truth clearly, you would have to change. And change is the one thing your brain resists the most. Not because it's hard, because it's unfamiliar. And unfamiliar feels like a threat. So instead of facing it, your brain creates something easier, a narrative, a version of reality that keeps everything exactly where it is. Comfortable, predictable, controlled. Even if that control is costing you everything. That's the part people don't realize. You're not stuck because you're confused. You're stuck because your current identity is being protected at all costs, and your brain is incredibly good at that. It doesn't need to stop you completely. It just needs to slow you down. A little hesitation, a little doubt, a little delay. That's enough, because success is fragile at the beginning. It needs momentum, and hesitation kills momentum. So your brain doesn't fight you directly. It interrupts you subtly. You open something important, and then you close it. You think about taking action, and then you wait. You start something, and then you get distracted. And none of it feels dramatic. That's why it's dangerous, because you don't notice it until time passes and nothing changes. That's how patterns survive, not through force, through invisibility. And the longer they stay invisible, the stronger they become until they feel like truth. And once something feels like truth, you stop questioning it. That's when the pattern becomes permanent. Not because it can't be broken, but because it's no longer seen. And what you can't see, you can't change. That's the first layer. Now here's the deeper one. Even when you start seeing it, even when you become aware, there's still resistance, because awareness creates pressure. You start noticing your habits, your reactions, your patterns, and suddenly, you can't ignore them anymore. You see yourself hesitating. You see yourself delaying. You see yourself going back. And that creates discomfort, because now, and knowing removes your excuses. So what does your brain do? It tries to escape, not physically, mentally. You distract yourself, you scroll, you think about something else, anything, to avoid sitting with that awareness, because awareness feels like responsibility, and responsibility feels heavy. So your brain chooses the easiest option. Go back to sleep, back to autopilot, back to patterns, back to what feels effortless, even if it keeps you stuck. That's the second trap. You wake up just enough to see the truth, but not enough to change it, because change requires staying in that discomfort longer than you want to, longer than feels natural. And most people don't. They touch it, then they leave. They see it, then they ignore it. And the pattern continues, slightly weaker, but still in control. That's why real change is rare. Not because it's impossible, because it's uncomfortable. Sustained discomfort. The kind that doesn't go away quickly. The kind that forces you to sit with yourself. Without distraction, without escape, without explanation, just you and the truth. And the truth is simple. You are not where you are because of money. You are where you are because of what feels normal to you. And until that changes, nothing else will. You can increase your income, you can find better opportunities, but you will always find a way back to your baseline, back to your identity, back to what your system can handle. That's the loop, and it doesn't break by trying harder. It breaks by staying aware. In the exact moment you would normally go back. That moment is everything. That's where the pattern runs. That's where the decision happens. Not outside, inside. And if you can stay there, without reacting, without escaping, without justifying, something changes. Not instantly, but deeply. You interrupt the pattern just once, and that is enough to create space. And in that space, you have something you didn't have before. A real choice. Not automatic, not conditioned. Conscious. And conscious choices are what start breaking unconscious patterns. Slowly, but permanently. That's where it begins, not with action. With awareness that you don't run from. Because most people run, and as long as you run, the pattern wins. So here's the truth. You don't have a money problem. You have a comfort problem. You're addicted to what feels familiar, even if it's struggle, even if it's stress, even if it's staying broke, because your brain prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar success. And until you break that, nothing changes. Not your income, not your life, not you. So the real question is not, how do I make more money? It's, am I willing to feel uncomfortable long enough to become someone new? Because that's the price. Not money, not time, discomfort, and most people won't pay it. Will you? Subscribe.